All right, day 10 in the books. How'd you do? Right? You're 10 days into a 21-day challenge. We're right here. We're flipping into the halfway mark. And I don't know about you, but I'm still excited and I'm loving everything that's happening in this challenge. I hope that you are finding yourself getting better. And even more importantly, I hope that your imagination for what's possible is getting bigger, right? The challenge is designed for us to expand, to get bigger, to go wide, to really go deep as well into concepts, ideas, desires. And man, it's just been so much fun. Real quick, let me go ahead and just kind of catch us back up. Maybe this is one of the first videos that you're watching and you're like, what's this video all about? So for the 21 days that we have initiated this challenge for improving our health and fitness, I've decided to share a topic a day for ideas to get better, to expand, for personal development, all those kinds of concepts, right? And so what we talked about is we've talked about the idea of your desires, your goals, your reasons, and your disciplines. And I put those four topics under a broader division, and that would be the idea of dreams. You know, dreams are about what you want, but also about the plans that you intend to see, the outcomes you want to actually experience, and the reason, the purpose behind why it is that you're doing those things. And then obviously you've got to place disciplines into those dreams to actually make them a reality. And you know, that's just a recipe that I find that a lot of successful people talk about. It might not be exactly the same way with every person. By the way, everything that you hear, right? Don't be a follower, be a student, be someone that hears an idea, contemplates it, thinks about it, and evaluates it and says, okay, this is for me or not for me. So maybe you're hearing these ideas, whether you do anything about them or not, it doesn't hurt my feelings one bit. These are just my ideas. Hopefully there are some ideas that'll inspire you, or it will cause you to think of another idea as well. But that's under the banner of dreams. Now, there's another banner that we specifically talked about for personal development, and that was 4 areas of personal development. Areas of discipline that we could achieve, right? That we could really lock into to become the better you, right? Doing the things that's better for us. And that came down to your personal health, what you're doing to take care of your body, your appearance, the way you feel. We talked about your emotional health, your attitude, the way you see the world around you, the way you perceive, right? The way you project, like everything about your attitude is so important. And we also talked about your intellectual health, the ability for you to learn, the ability to be a lifetime learner, to develop skills that increase your value. Super important. And then last we talked about our spiritual health, and that's the concept of identity. That all these things that we're talking about, you know, we've got to get down to the core of who you are, because who you are determines exactly how far you will go in any area of life, because your identity, as one mentor says, acts like a thermostat. So if you begin to cool down, your identity warms things back up. But also if you begin to heat up and things improve, your identity will shrink you back to who you are, because your identity is going to be that controlling device. It wants to be comfortable, right? But our job is to increase our identity so that way we have new normals, new standards that we just live by. In fact, it made me think of another, I guess you'd call him a mentor, but a book that I read that talked about we don't typically rise to our aspirations, but rather we fall to the level of our habits. I think the book was Atomic Habits. It's a great book. If you've not read it before, I think the author's James Clear. But the idea is you're always going to fall to a certain standard in which you've set. In other words, wherever you've set the bar, that's where you're eventually going to come back to. That's why you want to raise the bar. You want to raise your standards for yourself, for others around you, so that way when you inevitably do come down to a normal, just make sure that your normal is higher, it's better, it's stronger, right? And that has all to do with identity. So that's personal development. And now we are spending time talking about financial freedom, right? Financial freedom. Now, you might be asking, like, why are we talking about this? Because the truth of the matter is, it's an important topic. They say that in marriages, most marriages fail not because of anything outside of the marriage, but rather it's the struggle and stress around finances. You know, money, you can have the love for it, which would be wrong, but you could also have this disdain for it where you are running away from it, right? And you feel like you're better than other people because you don't have it. I don't think that's correct either. I think the Bible has a very clear teaching about this, that the idea is not to make distinctions about who we are as people, but to understand that what we have comes from God, and what we use it for honors Him. And there's examples. There's examples of men and women in the Bible who were wealthy and godly. They were also examples of those that were wealthy and not righteous, right? But the same is for the poor, the poverty, those that are without. There's examples of those that were right godly and those that were not godly. So it's not fair to say, okay, well, you know, it's either you're rich or you're poor. No. It's about being godly or not godly. That's the context. Now, how all the rest of that works, you're just going to have to work out between you and the Lord. But here's what I would say. I'll tell you this, a scripture that comes to mind that talks about that it's good to leave an inheritance for your children's children, right? Like in other words, we're talking about legacy. We're talking about accumulation. See, what happens is when we start talking about money, people get really intense and uncomfortable. But the truth is, I want us to begin thinking about financial independence as abundance, right? Abundance. In other words, we want to understand that there is an abundance in our country, in this world. And you know what? There are principles, in my opinion, that we can pursue, learn, and live by that will help make us financially free, which that's all we all want, right? To be able to be free, right? To not need any kind of supplication of our income, that we could retire with dignity and to also leave something great for our kids, right? Like that's just a great noble goal, and that comes from not living for yourself, but living for others. But you do have to, you know, based on what I've read and what the greats, people that have been so successful with their finances, you know, they do have levels, okay? But anyways, yesterday we talked about value, because that's where it begins with financial freedom, is understanding that money, the exchange principle, how it is that we exchange with one another, has all to do with the value that we offer. So in other words, the amount of money that I'm earning has a lot to do with the amount of value I'm giving. One mentor said, you don't get paid for your time, you get paid for your value. And the reason we know that is because if you're paid for your time, you wouldn't have to show up to work, because they would just pay you because you exist. It's being paid for time, right? But no, they expect you to bring value to their business as their business brings value to their customers. So it's all about value. And the way that you bring value in the marketplace is you have to increase in value, right? And that's why we go back to personal development. We want to grow and increase and become better, equipped with more skills, developing better attitudes. Like all these things play into our plan for financial freedom. All right. But now I want to cover the topic. I've went through a long list of things, but here's the topic at hand now that most of us, we hear about it, we talk about it, but let's really think about it clearly. And that is the idea of cash flow. Cash flow. I'll put it a simpler way. Okay. Saving. So you heard me say last week, I'm not to be so consumed with saving. That does not mean that you don't save. That's not the point of it. The point is we should focus on increasing our value to increase our income. But what we do with what we have is just as important. Everyone knows Dave Ramsey. We love Dave Ramsey, right? We are supposed to act our wage, which means you don't spend more than you make. And I will say this, you don't spend all that you make. You have to have cash flow. Businesses live and die because they have cash flow. They have an abundance to help them to put back for times where emergencies happen, or as we've seen in our world, we have a shutdown, and now we've got to have capital, and in other words, extra money in order to operate and live, and again, to find opportunities to expand and to grow. But if we don't have any extra, we can't do that. See, sometimes I'm afraid that we think that, well, we gotta use it all, right? Or even going back to the other, we don't charge enough for what we offer. But the point of the matter is we've got to get to the place where we're living our lives with margin, with cash flow, because it's the cash flow that ensures that we are living and that we are going towards our financial freedom goals, right? But it's a principle of saving. I heard my pastor say one time, I love this, that the Bible talks a lot about having your storehouse blessed, that the Lord would bless your storehouse. But how can He bless something you don't have? I want you to think about that. How can He bless something you don't have? So if you don't have cash flow, and by the way, I'm not talking about going through a tough time where you have to dip into savings, because hopefully you've got that. I'm talking about just being very chaotic and not responsible with your money. I mean, I think we all have those moments, right, where we tighten things up, right? We look at what we're spending our money on, and we're like, okay, we can do better, right? We're always improving that to increase our cash flow. But understand, that's the goal. Increase your cash flow. Increase in what we are being able to put back, because tomorrow's topic is going to have all to do with this cash flow, because you don't just save to save. Yes, it is a principle, but understand there is an outcome with that cash flow. And this is what the greats do, right? They live on, and in fact, I heard that the wealthiest men and women in our world across the board historically, they found ways to, when they were very first beginning, they found ways to save 40% of their income. I just want you to think about that, saving 40% of your income. That's huge. That's huge. And what they did with that 40% is even more epic. But all I'm asking you in your financial freedom plan is, when's the last time you maybe put things to pen and paper and said, hey, here's my budget. By the way, here's one little piece of advice about budget. It's better to go and see what you've done before you start trying to future forecast what you're going to do. See, most people, they'll start out, they'll write a budget and say, okay, here's what I'm going to spend and da-da-da, when you have no clue of where you're at. It's better for you to keep the books, so to speak, to do an accounting of what your current habits are to project into the future, so that way you can go ahead and make real decisions about what you are and are not going to do, right? If you are going to spend so much, let's say, on a coffee budget, why don't you figure out what your coffee budget has been before you start talking about what it's going to be? Because there's a gap. It's a reality gap. There's a gap of, hey, here's what I should do, want to do, but there's also what I have been doing, right? And you've got to get those gaps closed as fast as possible, because the more that you can step in reality, the better that your budget actually is going to be. So just simply start by doing the books, right? Doing a quick accounting, right? Just categorizing what you have been spending in the past. And then let's start talking about what we're going to start doing with our money, because it is a choice. That is the thing that's interesting about cash flow, is it's a choice. Every time you use your money, you're using it, you are deciding what it is that you're going to support, what you're going to get in return, right? Going back to that idea of what's it cost versus what's it worth. Do you find yourself spending your money on things that have no return constantly, or are you buying things that are going to help you? It's an investment in you. Or are you being a blessing to people, right? We're actually going to talk about that the following day. But anyways, all I'm saying is, let's start paying attention to what we're doing, and let's try to be people that develop cash flow, that have abundance, because it's out there, right? And again, if you're having a hard time finding ways to save, it goes back to the first step, and that is, okay, if I can't save, maybe it's not a saving problem, it's not a budget problem, but it's actually an income problem. So I need to increase my income so I can begin savings. Just a couple thoughts to hopefully encourage you, inspire you, make you start thinking about ways that you and your family can do better. But anyways, have a great day, and we'll see you for day 11.